Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about Chain of Command. Okay, so this is the review series. Here's Chain of Command. I lent my physical copy of my book to a friend for a while, so I'm using a PDF copy that I own. I love PDF rulebooks for learning a game. PDF rulebooks are awesome. For playing a game, I prefer hard copies. So, anyway, PDFs are great because you can search through them. You can just Control F, find exactly where you need to be. Anyway, so those who haven't seen this series before, I would actually recommend you watch the Sharp Practice video because a lot of the stuff in this is also in Sharp Practice. But I'll try my best in this video too. So, Chain of Command is done by TooFatLardies and awesome company. And the way these reviews work is I give 5 positives, 3 meh, and then one thing that makes the game special, or one sort of what makes this game different to everything else out there on the market. So let's get started with the first positive. The tactical flexibility and playing the period. This is something you actually see in the rulebook. It says play the period. You're actually able to play the period. So for example, in a game like Bolt Action, the reason you take MGs for your Germans is because you get 1 extra dice per MG. So they're a little bit more cost effective. The reason you take a lot of MGs for your guys in Chain of Command is because they get freaking like a whole bunch more dice, and your officers actually, when the officers enhance an MG, it's much more effective than when they enhance a rifle, because the German tactic is built around the machine gun being the center of the squad, putting down covering fire and doing the work. Whereas if you play the British, you have the Bren gun, which can act as almost like a sniper machine gun. It can specifically target, well, normally if you have, I'm assuming people know sort of the basics, so normally if you have 2 teams making up a squad next to one another, hits get shared, but a Bren, a sergeant can come down to a Bren gunner and say, right, hit the left-hand squad, we really need to pin those down, and because Bren gun was famous for its accuracy, you can actually do that. When Germans charge into combat, they get a whole bunch of grenades. There's a heap of special rules for all the factions, and when you play a faction, it actually feels like you're playing that faction. You can split your squads up. So, for example, you can say, right, Bill, Joe, head out on your own as a scout team, and you can do that. You can absolutely do that. You can say, okay, I really need to take that objective over there, but it's sort of in the rear, and I don't want to send too many men to do it. Or we literally just need someone to babysit an objective, just to make sure nothing happens to it. And in a normal game, like a 40k Bolt Action, you'd have to literally have a unit in your army whose dedicated purpose is to do that. And of course, real life platoons don't have useless people in them whose job is just to babysit things. Maybe some do, but officially, on paper, there are no one in a platoon whose job is to just be a babysitter. So it's great that a game like Chain of Command, you can actually go, right, you and you go and babysit that objective, or you and you run forward and then throw a bunch of grenades. So we'll cover you, and then you, not as a section, but as just 2 men or 1 man or something, like you run forward, throw a grenade. It's really cool. You can actually throw grenades. So many World War II games you can't throw grenades. I do not understand that at all. It's a skirmish game. Bolt Action does this, for example. There are no grenades in Bolt Action, or it's part of melee, but we're 2 inches away and we're having a firefight. Well, when we lob grenades, anyway, you can lob grenades in Chain of Command. The tactical flexibility you have, the ability to respond to things, the ability to lay down practical smoke that actually works, the ability to just respond to what's happening on the tabletop rather than having to. You're actually, as the game says, you're playing the period, not the rules. You're not worried about, oh well, technically the rule book says you can't do. You're playing anything you think you can do in real life, you can pretty much do in Chain of Command. So that's number 1. Number 2, the non-standard deployment types. Those who don't know, Chain of Command has the patrol system where you move patrol markers around, and these designate where your jump off points are. So instead of having a 6x4 table, in frame, there we go, 6x4 table here, and we deploy here, or here, or on the corners, or something like that. Chain of Command, you can deploy, well, 1 person in the corner, and the other one sort of up on this top bit here near the house, or 1 person's in a field way on the other side, and the other person's taking the town with a little bit of crossroads. It's every time you deploy, it's different. Some people don't like this too much because it sort of adds a little bit of extra something to do before the game starts. You have to actually do this patrol phase. But I personally love it. I love the idea of not being like, oh, we're just marching towards each other like it's 1815 all over again. So number 2, yes, non-standard deployment, and the ability to use these jump off points to catapult units and to reinforce your positions if you run out of ammunition with a mortar, because of course mortars and a lot of anti-tank guns actually have limited ammunition. I'm not sure, I know mortars do, especially British mortars, they have the limited HE rounds. Anyway, you can actually go back to a jump off point and try and get more, and maybe you don't, maybe you do, you know, it depends on what the platoon's got with it, but these jump off points are awesome. Number 3, the expansions and support for the game. There are so many free lists of Chain of Command up on the TooFatLardies website, up on their forum there. It's crazy. There's so many free lists. It's out of control. They also do the pint-sized campaigns, which are essentially, I think it's the price of a pint, hence the name pint-sized campaigns. And Rich puts these things out all the friggin' time. All the time these campaigns are coming out. There's tons of them there. There's some for France, I think. There's actually a whole expansion book just for the Blitzkrieg. I know there's one for Kampfgruppe von Luck for just after D-Day in July there, for Operation Goodwood, where von Luck was going up against the British there at Goodwood. There's definitely a book for that. There's heaps and heaps of books. I think there's even expansions for the Spanish Civil War, that sort of thing. So yeah, TooFatLardies, if you want a game that has I would say it's the best community managed, community engagement group in the entire industry. It's the best managed, it's the best run company for actually getting in touch with its customers, for promoting their games with free supplements, with very cheap supplements, and with paid, very high quality supplements. I mean, this Chain of Command book, if you look through it, it's beautiful. It's full of beautifully painted miniatures. The diagrams are all well set out, but I'm getting ahead of myself here. So that's number 3, the expansions and support for the game. Let's move on to number 4. Number 4, the system of vehicle damage. Oh, this is so much better than bolt action. I'm not trashing bolt action. What's the bolt action feature? Oh, it's good, but one of my big problems with it is vehicle damage, because if you roll a 4+, the tank just explodes. That's how you blow up vehicles. You roll 4+, boom. In Chain of Command, it depends on how much you penetrated the armor, and then you have to roll a dice again. So it's roll to hit, then you roll to penetrate the armor. It's like, well, okay, so I hit the tank and I got through with 2 dice. Okay, so you roll the 2 dice chart. Okay, it turns out you killed the driver. So now the tank needs someone has to, I don't want to be great, do whatever they do to get the driver out of that position and put themselves in there. Or you've stunned the tank and everyone's freaking out because even though you didn't penetrate, maybe you just hit it and it's rung like a bell and the shells bounced off. That's pretty damn scary. So even if you have tanks that can't penetrate, so you're not going to blow up a Tiger with a friggin' Sherman at mid-range, but you can stun the crew. You can hit it and do like a single penetrating hit goes through. It's not going to blow up, catch fire, and go everywhere like it might in bolt action. But you can certainly scare the driver into reversing 6 inches or putting a whole bunch of pins on the tank. It's a much more detailed and more tactical way of dealing with vehicles, I personally think, and I really like the way it does vehicle damage. Number 5, the book is probably the clearest laid out book you will ever find in wargaming, or among them. Every chapter is numbered. Subheadings of that chapter are also numbered. It's got an awesome index. I believe Force on Force doesn't have an index. That really pisses me off when a game doesn't have an index. Put an index in your games. Chain of Command is fantastically well laid out. There are diagrams for almost everything. There are little like tip boxes all over the place. There are designer commentaries and that sort of thing. It's an awesome game. And again, with the support network that's out there for TooFatLardies, I mean, they've got their own YouTube channel where they literally play through the games. They've been on Beasts of War on tabletop a whole bunch of times playing through the games. TooFatLardies will help you if you need help. They will support the community, and it couldn't be clearer to play a TooFatLardies game, especially Chain of Command. So the next 3 are things that are sound a bit and the only reason I did this sort of segment is because on Beasts of War on tabletop, which inspired this whole thing, there was a forum post about more critical type reviews of games. And it's actually quite hard because I really couldn't find much that annoys me about Chain of Command. In fact, I could only find 2 and had to throw another one in there, which is something that doesn't annoy me but does annoy some people. So, again, this is the same as with Sharp Practice. I couldn't find things that annoyed me. but I have found some things that are a bit naggy. Number 1, the random movement. You roll a d6 for movement, so 1d6 tactical, 2d6 normal, 3d6 running. But you can roll a 6, and you're moving tactically really quickly, and you roll 3 1s for running, and you take a whole bunch of shock, and then you sort of like stumble forward 3 steps. Meanwhile, the guys moving tactically have literally moved twice as far as you in the same time. I know where it's coming from. I know it's coming from a thing of like they start running, then they see something that they think is the enemy, and they stop, but it just really... It would be better if it was 1d6 tactical, 2d6 normal, and then running was 6 inches plus 2d6. So you know you're going to guaranteed get some distance before you put a random factor into it. But I really don't like the whole sprinting is random, and it sort of bugs me a little. But anyway, not that bad. It's just something that it gets at me. 2, the random morale generation. Again, I know what's in there. And I know if you actually play through a campaign, you don't have to do that every time because you do still, but it's more. There's more reason to it. But to have to randomly generate your morale every time, you always forget to do it. You always end up like, okay, so I lose 1 force morale because the thing happened in the game. We forgot to set our force morale, and then you have to go back and roll for it in the middle of the game, and it takes you out of it. It would be easier if every force was just given a force morale, and then that was factored into their support options. So, for example, my British Paras, they were given a force morale of, say, 10, and then they cost like an extra 2 support points or something, or an extra 1 support point. Again, I understand why it's in there, and it's not something that's game-breaking, and I still play with force morale, but it's just one of those things that it constantly comes up in a game, and it sort of derails you slightly, because you always forget to do it. Anyway. Number 3. Now, this is the one that doesn't annoy me personally. I actually quite like the game because of this. But there are a few people out there I've talked to, including someone who actually spoke to, specifically because I'm making this video, I'm like, hey, you've played Chain of Command. What's something you didn't like about it? And he actually came back. He took me like 2 hours to get back to me because he just couldn't think of anything. But he eventually came up with the accuracy of Chain of Command. And this is more to do with people who are not really, I want to say hardcore, but people who aren't really... They're not really into historical wargaming. They more just want to play something like 40k, but in World War II, which is how a lot of people describe Bolt Action. I'm not trashing Bolt Action. I actually quite like the game. Reviews down there, but it can be a bit jarring for some people when they go, well, how do I build a list? It's like, well, you take this, and then you get to add support options based on what I take. And they go, oh, but I don't want to do that. I don't want to take a list. I don't want to take one of these. I want to build something cool and different. And it's like, well, you can. You've got to go into the calculator for Chain of Command and literally build your units. And it's like, oh no, I don't want to do that. I literally just want to like jump in and play with all these stuff that I've got. And it's like, well, you shouldn't be really mixing SS and normal Wehrmacht in a German army anyway. So yeah. Anyway, so for some people, the accuracy is a hurdle to get into the game. For me, it's not. For me, I love it. For me, it actually makes it way more clearer. But that is a negative point that some people do bring up when they talk about Chain of Command. So I talked about this in this is the final special factor, by the way. I've talked about this in my Sharp Practice review. Again, it's down below. There'll be a link to like a playlist or something. And that's the Lardy factor is what I call it. So if you want to get an even more in-depth look at that, just hit at the end of the Sharp Practice. There should be towards the last 5 minutes, should be the Lardy factor. So it's basically shock, leader activations, and the random activation of units for Chain of Command anyway. So your leader becomes the focal point of your army. In a lot of, again, I don't want to repeat myself from the Sharp Practice, but in a lot of games, leaders just buff units. In Sharp Practice, leaders command units, which is what they're supposed to do. Your leader is not just there to buff the unit, it's there to literally activate it. Activating with a leader is much, much better than activating without one. You get to add more dice to your pool. You get to do special things like throw hand grenades for your charge in, or get more dice on that machine gun because the leader's coordinating the fire. Or there's so many different things leaders can do that aren't just support actions like they are in Bolt Action, where they can give you a bonus to your morale and activate dice. I'm really trash in Bolt Action. I'm going to pick another game. Muskets and Tomahawks, another one I've done a review on. Muskets and Tomahawks, a leader is essentially just there to be a morale bubble. That's it. That's all leaders are in Muskets and Tomahawks, is just a morale bubble. They can have traits, but if you're just playing a normal standard game, they're basically just there to give you a +1 to your reaction tests. Whereas in Chain of Command, it's leaders are actually part of the game. It's fantastic, and I love that. And it makes Chain of Command really special, because they managed to put leaders at the focal point without having the whole game orbit around them. I keep saying that in the Sharp Practice one too, but I hope that makes sense. The leaders are extremely important, but the game does not revolve around the leaders. It's still about the men, but the leaders are what it leads these men. It's what pushes these men. It's what guides the men. So the activation is done by rolling a bunch of d6. Normally 5, 6 for elite units, like my British paratroopers have 6 dice. Get yourself an MDF cutout thing or a sheet of paper where you can actually physically put the dice on it, because oh boy, there is nothing worse than rolling a whole bunch of dice and you pick them up and you roll them again and then oh, what did I have? So yeah, write it down on a piece of paper. I've got little MDF things that Battlefield Accessories here in Australia make. They're just a little thing, and it's got chain of command dice, force morale dial. There's a chain of command dice dial, and there's a whole thing of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 where you can actually physically put the chain of command dice. So yeah, so those are the Lardy factors that I really like about this game. Thanks for watching the review of Chain of Command. If you'd like me to do another game, pop it in the comments below. I'm only going to do games I actually know about, so don't put down Palermos, some 6mm stuff in there that I haven't played before. I'm not doing these reviews to go like, oh, here's what I think of this. These are things I've been playing for many years now, and I'd like to chuck my opinion out there. And if people want to see some quick reviews, this is like a 15-minute video. It's just nice and quick. If you like it, hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, because there's heaps of other stuff out there. If you like in-depth reviews, there's heaps in-depth reviews. If you like the review that I've just done, there's more in the channel below, and there's more to come. So again, put them down in the comments, and thanks very much for watching. Have a wonderful day.